The problematic prince. Oh my god, your highness. The maid's startled cry roared up the spire at the west end of the palace. Erna looked back in shock, her hand freezing as it was withdrawing from a box of chocolates. Oh, Karen, it's you. Your highness, what are you doing here? I just wanted to get some fresh air. Erna smiled shyly. The setting sun, it cast reddened light. I'm sorry if I caused any trouble. I didn't think anyone would come up here. I didn't mean to cause any trouble. No, your highness, you may go where you wish, but I didn't mean that, Karen sighed. When she had seen the doors of the spire had been left open, she thought that some of the servants who were secretly dating had come up here. She never expected to see the Grand Duchess. All too often Erna had been turning up in places Karen would never have thought to see her. The pottery room, the stairway to the coal bin, an abandoned well. Most of the places were remote enough that people did not frequent them unless necessary. This had all started about the middle of last month. She had asked to see the floor plans for the mansion. Karen brought them to her, and Erna had pored over the plans for days. Did she hear us? Erna had gotten lost in the mansion several times, and the servile staff had made fun of her about it. What if she heard us, and she tells the prince the young maids had looked at Karen with tears in their eyes? Don't worry about such pointless things, Karen had told them. From then on, the Grand Duchess was never found lost around the mansion again. Instead, she had become like a ghost, suddenly popping up where she was not expected. If you keep eating those chocolates, it'll be bad for your health, your highness, Karen said to Erna. I've not eaten that many. You shouldn't be eating them on a day like today. Were you not ailed earlier? The Grand Duchess had vomited after standing for the painter for so long. She was now hovering over a box of colorful chocolates like nothing had happened. Even when it was suggested that the painter come back another time, Erna insisted on getting the work done. She had a smile on her face, like she hadn't just voided the contents of her stomach. Your highness, the necklace. Erna stopped fiddling with the box of chocolates and gave Karen a quizzical look. Don't worry about the nonsense people are saying. The staff were there. They knew the necklace was a gift from the prince. Karen said, her throat becoming suddenly dry. All the servants who had been on the honeymoon knew that the diamond necklace had been a present from the prince and had nothing to do with the whims of the Grand Duchess. The Grand Duchess was a noble lady, even if she lacked a little in the education of one, but she was definitely not one to enjoy frivolous luxury. Even if Erna had begged the prince to get her the necklace, there would be no reason to criticize and probably wouldn't have if it had been anyone other than Erna. She is his wife after all. No one would have taken issue with it. If not for the necklace, people would have looked for something else to criticize the Grand Duchess for. The shameless woman who took the position away from the more deserving Princess Gladys. Karen rarely felt at ease in this matter. She certainly felt like Gladys was the more deserving of the two of them, but she could see how uncomfortable the Grand Duchess was when the prince sent for the necklace and then put it on Erna's neck. Karen could vaguely guess the heart of the Grand Duchess in that moment. Are you worried about me? Erna asked with a gentle smile. Thank you, Karen. Sincerely. Erna took Karen's advice and began to wipe her hands with a handkerchief. Even if she had decided to eat the remaining chocolates, she would have only made herself feel more sick and she wouldn't be able to make dinner. Erna went back down the spire, clutching the half-eaten box of chocolates. She had felt much better in the cool breeze and a stomach full of sweets. She had been so upset and depressed when she climbed the stairs. There were so many feelings swirling around her when she saw Pavel, but none of them she could express. She had to stick to formal greetings and conversations. It felt unfair to Pavel. She became more resolute in that feeling when Pavel left in the late afternoon. She was resentful of Bjorn for deciding to go with Pavel. She couldn't even reveal how she felt about that because she didn't want to cause any misunderstanding. It was not only the reputation of herself and Pavel that would be damaged, but that of Bjorn as well, and Erna did not want to be that kind of wife. It was okay for her to be ridiculed and ignored by everyone. She was able to endure it, as long as she was with Bjorn. If he could understand her true feelings, consider her a good wife, and live happily for a long time, then she would be content. As she entered the hallway leading to the bedroom, Erna saw Mrs. Fitz walking on the other side. There you are, Your Highness." Mrs. Fitz stopped a few steps away and greeted Erna. Erna bowed her head in a corresponding greeting. "I'm sorry I left my seat." "No, it's quite all right, Your Highness. I will get the maids to set your dinner. I'll discuss that with Bjorn and decide." A flash of embarrassment appeared on Mrs. Fitz's face. "Your Highness," wrinkles fanned out from between Mr. Fitz's brow. "His Highness has stepped out. He probably won't be back until late." It was as unreal as the sunset that filled the hallway with golden light. The bedroom was locked in total darkness, even in the middle of the day, thanks to the blackout curtains. Bjorn laid on his bed, staring up at the ceiling. He didn't look at his watch. He sensed that it was around midday. There was no rush. There was nothing important going on today. Not unless Erna intended to bug him with something. He wondered what sort of mundane adventures that woman might have planned for them if he were to get up now. He let out a sigh and closed his eyes. He had decided not to go to his wife's room when he came back late last night. He figured it would be more comfortable for the pair of them. Erna would have hounded him too early in the morning, then chased him about the mansion, looking like she was about to cry. Even just thinking about Erna clinging to him constantly was enough to annoy, so he rang the service bell and started to rise from his bed. Feet barely touched the floor when the maids came rushing in, pulling aside the curtains and illuminating the bedroom with bright sunlight. Bjorn moved to stand in front of the window. The sun tickled his skin with warmth, and it reminded him of Erna's touch. The second the woman crossed his mind again, he realized the mansion was uncharacteristically quiet. "Has my wife gone out?" "Yes, Your Highness," said the maid serving late morning, lunchtime tea. "For what?" "I do not know, Your Highness. I will go and check with Mrs. Fitz." "No," said Bjorn, taking up a teacup. "You don't have to do that." The rich aroma of the tea tickled his nose as he took a sip. The sun was warm. There was a pleasant scent of flowers on the breeze, and the day was quiet. There was no need to go out and chase chaos when the day started out so well. The morning felt like the time before Bjorn had decided to take a wife. Quiet, relaxed, and everything done in his stride. He drank the tea, read the paper, then took a shower and sat at the breakfast table out on the balcony. He completely forgot about Erna. He was well aware that Erna was just an innocent woman who followed him around like a newly hatched duckling. She always looked at him like he was the center of the world. She accepted him as he was and understood him. He did not believe Erna had anything but love in her heart. Then he found himself thinking about the artist. His true intentions were unknown to him, but at least Erna was adamant that he was just a friend. The fact that he knew that all too well made him feel bad, and he did not like that feeling one bit. Is this jealousy? Bjorn would ask himself that on occasion, and each time he would laugh to himself. What has he got to be jealous of? He was friends with Erna, that was all. Erna is quite insistent on that fact. There was no need to be jealous. It was the kind of relationship where you just had to stick at it, enjoy your wife, and love her as best you can. Don't put any unnecessary meaning to the bed feelings. Keep it light and fresh, like just another means of entertainment in his life. Tired of the thought, Bjorn decided to walk the gardens to clear his head. There was no use obsessing over this thing. There was not much that could be done about it. The bad feeling that had been plaguing him since thinking about Erna and Pavel faded away like a dream, and he was able to enjoy the splendid afternoon. Or so it would seem. It's already that late? Erna said when realizing the time. She had been talking nonstop for 2 hours. I'm sorry, I didn't want to take up too much of your time. I should be going, the young Grand Duchess said with wide eyes. How long are you going to keep doing this? Duchess Erna said, fixing Erna with a glare. She had been silent the entire time Erna was talking. Her white cat didn't seem to mind, curled up on the uninvited guest's lap. It was toward the end of the last winter that Erna first started to invade the Erna Duchy. She had only come to say hello and maybe talk about how great her honeymoon had been. Duchess Erna did not like her eldest grandson because he had turned a lifetime of pride into a lifetime of shame. She hated her grandson's bride even worse, as she felt the Grand Duchess was only trying to show off her position. The Grand Duchess had stayed for over 2 hours in the drawing room. Before leaving, she left a little gift, with a note to suggest she would be back next week. The Duchess Erna had ordered it to be thrown away. She suspected that the Grand Duchess was trying to buy favor with expensive gifts. But when a maid emptied the box, the Duchess was surprised to find slippers, a shawl, and a corsage brooch. Relatively ordinary-looking gifts of very little value. What was more absurd was that the box next to it, a gift for Charlotte, the white cat, it contained a small pillow and a feathered fishing rod. She had originally thought that Erna was trying to play a little prank on her. That was until she heard Erna had given Philip a reading stand and Isabel a pair of pruning scissors. It seemed like Erna completely disregarded the fact that they were king and queen, but considering their hobbies of reading and flower arranging, they were entirely appropriate gifts. She had laughed when she heard Erna had gifted Leonid a pair of glasses. It seemed like the woman was going out of her way to find gifts people would find useful. She laughed again and threw hers in the bin. She thought Erna was a snob who secured the position of Grand Duchess by her looks. Now that she had come to know the girl, she seemed just that, a little child with barely an interesting side to her. It was only for that reason that she wanted to meet the new Grand Duchess in the first place, but now she was stuck meeting the girl every Wednesday, or so it would seem. I'll ask you directly, what are your intentions? She said to Erna before she left. The Duchess felt silly for being scared to ask the girl such a serious question. Whether she's unbelievably clever or just an idiot with no plan, she was going to find out. Seeing the smile on the Grand Duchess's face made Arsène feel like the idiot. It's Bjorn's birthday in a couple months. I really want to invite you to dinner. How could she have not known that that was such a rude request? Is this girl a monster or something? Are you sure? It has been years since I've celebrated your husband's birthday. I know, but I still want to invite his grandmother. Why? It's the first birthday present I want to give my husband. This innocent-looking girl, who was both an idiot and a monster, was declaring war with an angelic smile. Did your husband put you up to this? Surely this child couldn't have thought of such plot on her own. Or was she just intending to make fun of the Duchess of Erna? No, please, you must keep it a secret from Bjorn. It's to be a surprise. The Grand Duchess gave such a thrilling answer. It broke the Duchess Erna's fighting spirit. Then, for the last 2 months, she has been coming round, like clockwork, every Wednesday, disturbing her peaceful life. If she had locked herself away and not seen the Grand Duchess, she would probably have just sat and drank tea with the cat. When she did sit with her face to face, showing nothing but stern contempt, the girl would yammering on endlessly, mostly about her husband. I won't be able to breath until this birthday passes, the Duchess said. Charlotte stretched on Erna's lap before moodily waltzing over to her cushion on the other side of the couch. His birthday isn't just this year, Grandma. The girl gave out such spiteful words, but her face remained placid and carefree. Was this why Bjorn had chosen this wife? Such a troublesome young girl. Never come again, the Duchess Erna would say, as Erna left. See you next week, the Grand Duchess would always reply. And so it was that Wednesday's uninvited guest would come back each week to harass the poor, old woman. The whole basin of the Amidst River had been dyed red, Erna saw, as she went over the Grand Duke's bridge in her carriage. Chewing on a lace of licorice to soothe a sore throat, Erna gazed out at the scenery. The sky was painted red by the setting sun, and with the water rose-colored, she couldn't get enough of it. She was always like that, even thought she saw it every day, just like her husband. Soon she will be back at Schuber Palace, where her husband would hopefully be waiting if he has not already gone out. Erna put up with it. Erna endured it. He would get up late, break his promises, and head out to the social club. Drink and gamble until the earliest hours of the morning, stumble in drunk and sleep until the afternoon. Again and again, Erna endured it, but her husband had a talent for showing his affection when she most needed it, and for that reason, she endured some more. Erna would repeatedly doze off and wake up, waiting for Bjorn to come home. She tried not to care if he came home or not, and tried to get a good night's sleep, but she couldn't relax, sleeping alone in her bed. Bjorn, why can't you be a more stalwart husband? I don't like this, she had said when he finally came home, stinking of alcohol. Who do you think you've married? He swept his disheveled hair back and looked at her with cool eyes, quite uncharacteristic of a drunkard. Is it not funny to marry a prodigal son and expect a saint? That's not what I meant. If you marry this kind of man, then you should love him anyway. Is that not a wife's duty? Bjorn said, coming closer to Erna with his head cocked, looking her up and down. He threw a sharp, mocking glance at Erna, laced with a friendly tone as if whispering love. He walked past her as if nothing had happened. Erna tried to be patient. Say was to see it through, somehow, but Bjorn had snapped her last nerve, broke her patience. You are supposed to sleep in my bed with me tonight. Looking at his back as he headed toward his bedroom, Erna summoned up the courage to face him. She hated him a lot at that point, but she didn't want to be shunned by him. Bjorn, we were supposed to share the same bed. Bjorn opened the door to his bedroom with a sigh, went in and closed the door again behind him. Erna stood in the quiet corridor, alone, for a long time. Erna opened her eyes when the carriage came to a stop. She tried to erase the thoughts that swam endlessly around her mind. Today, she would understand if Bjorn wanted to spend all night drinking and playing poker. She hoped for it, really. Welcome, Your Highness. The prince is waiting for you, Mrs. Fitz said. Of course, today would be the day the man didn't want to do anything he liked the most. Why are you so quiet? Bjorn broke the heavy silence at the dinner table. I'm just a little tired today, Erna replied stiffly. She kept her eyes on the plate in front of her, like a defiant child. She was very angry. As always, Bjorn laughed it off. Why, what did you get up to today? He hated it when Erna behaved like a sulky child. I don't want to talk about it. I too have a private life. She looked away from the dinner table. Bjorn leaned on the back of the chair and watched Erna. She normally liked to make a fuss about her day, but she just stared at her plate as she ate, pretending she couldn't feel Bjorn staring at her. Erna, you shouldn't waste your energy on such pointless things. You should concentrate on doing what makes you happy. It was a friendly remark by his soft tone and inviting smile. What do you think I should do? Am I some sort of doll that you can pose however you like, whenever you like? The words came with effort, but Erna let them come out. More and more it seemed like she didn't know Bjorn. He was a kind and considerate man at times, but now she could see that he probably didn't mean it, or did these things by accident. The closer she got to him, the more difficult he was. It felt like she was better off keeping Bjorn at a distance, remaining indifferent. That's not a bad idea. Why don't you try being that kind of wife? He titled his head slightly and wore a wicked grin on his face. She had wanted to resolve the awkwardness of the relationship, but she forgot she was dealing with a poisonous mushroom. No, Erna said, standing up in a shot and throwing her napkin onto the table. I know I'm lacking in most areas, but still, I am trying to make an effort and I will continue to do so. It had been almost half a year since they had gotten married, but she still thought of herself as that lost girl in a strange world. She believed she was getting better, but was she still lacking so much in his eyes? Or maybe it was simply because he never had any expectations in her in the first place. Although she was completely disillusioned with her efforts to please her husband, she still didn't want to become some emotionless doll that he could do whatever he wanted with. Sit down, Erna, Bjorn said with a sigh. It was just like last night. He threw hurtful words and showed a strange joy on his face, like he was confirming that he had this woman's heart. That secret joy of his to see her shamed. I don't want to, Erna said, rubbing her red eyes. I'm sorry, but I am busy doing useless things. Erna bowed her head and left, stomping as she went. Do you not have anything to say? Mrs. Fitz asked Bjorn as he sat at his desk with his nose buried in some important file. He did not respond. No, I'm just surprised to hear you and the Grand Duchess fighting. Who's fighting? Bjorn looked up with a bland smile. It was funny to call that unprecedentedly fierce and bitter rebellion a fight. Erna was just being Erna, a woman who will smile like the sun again after a few jokes, a smile, and a friendly kiss. You are a good person, Your Highness, a better person with her at your side, Mrs. Fitz spoke in a low voice. What a generous evaluation from the strict Mrs. Fitz. I'm just speaking the truth. I know, Bjorn nodded. Mrs. Fitz looked at him anxiously. The former crown prince and the princess of Lars had such a perfect honeymoon. It was a quiet, elegant, peaceful time. It was not suitable for a young couple of that age, but they were the pride of Lichen and Lars. But was the marriage perfect? Mrs. Fitz had often asked herself that question recently. The prince she had known since he was a little child seemed unfamiliar to her these days. She could not imagine him spending so much time fretting over his wife, only to throw it all away by arguing with her. Mrs. Fitz looked at the prince, then over to Erna's bedroom. Bjorn and Gladys used to be praised on how they seemed like an old couple, like they'd been together for decades. It made her wonder. Your Highness, Mrs. Fitz said impulsively, could he really have had an affair? No, never mind. As always, Mrs. Fitz buried the question. It was not the kind of thing she could have brought up casually, even if it was the truth or other truths existed. There was no way to find out. If he decided to hide, there was going to be no way to prise it from him. Bjorn went over to the door to Erna's bedroom. The prince Mrs. Fitz had raised was such a gentleman, and she loved him for that. He knocked confidently on the door. Go away, Erna shouted. Bjorn frowned and knocked again with more force, making the handle rattle. Open the door, Erna. No, I don't want to. My bed is expensive. What? It means you cannot come and go as you please. Her cry was ferocious, like a beast. Erna, you'd better open this door. Bjorn knocked on the door again. The harder he knocked, the louder Erna shouted, and the dark, quiet halls of the grand palace was filled with the battle of newlyweds. Surprised by the disturbance, maids and servants filtered out and gathered around to listen. You really think I can't open this door if you don't open up? Bjorn was no longer relaxed, or wore a smile like this was some big jest. The servants looked at each other. What were they going to do if the prince asked for the key to the door? The prince took a breath and calmed himself. He backed away from the door, but never once took his cool, cold eyes from the lock. He looked like a predator about to pounce, and unless the servants intervened quickly, he was really going to open the door with a kick. Who do you think is going to lose out in the end, Erna? Bjorn shook off the servant, holding him back. Well, it's certainly not going to be my loss. Bjorn took a deep breath and swallowed dryly. It looked like he was controlling his anger, but anyone looking closer would be able to see the veins popping in his head. I don't want to see you, so go away, and before you even think of it, the couple's passage is also locked. This woman, she's out of mind. Bjorn thought, this deer was definitely a mad. If you don't open this door and come out right now, you'll never see my face again. Bjorn's was quite serious in his threat. Wow. Thank you so much for your consideration. The onlookers witnessing the fight grew embarrassed and wondered if they should have given the couple space. If you need a doll, go ask your nanny. A pretty doll, the ones that all the princes like. Fine. Let's see who will lose out in the end. Bjorn turned away from the door with a laugh. Surprised, the bystanders hurried back, lowering their eyes. There was only one, Mrs. Fitz, who dared not move and looked at the prince. Congratulations on your first fight, she said. From his first cry, his first babble, or his first step, she always congratulated him on every prince's first. Do you need me to fetch you a doll? Bjorn's brow wrinkled at the question. It was a different look to the one he had just been wearing during the fight, like he was seriously considering it. After staring into space for a while, Bjorn turned as if nothing had happened. He walked back to his room at a leisurely pace. His anger was still brimming on the surface as he slammed his bedroom door.